With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the AgNet News Hour. We're starting out today with a discussion on the damage from wildfires, but looking at another area that we may not always think about, and that's damage to the Central Valley tree nut crops caused by wildfire smoke that blows down into the valley from megafires that we've been seeing over the last few years. Joining us on the phone are two University of California researchers who found out just how costly that damage can be. And to get us started, if you both would each please go ahead and give me your names and your titles.
I'm Jessica Roscoe, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher.
Maciej Zwieniecki, professor at UC Davis.
Great. Once again, thank you both for taking a few minutes out to talk about this study that you did. I really appreciate your time. So I wanted to start out. The study was on wildfire smoke and its effects on our orchards and trees. And so I wanted to let's start out with an overview of what you studied and what you found.
Yeah, so the study we were looking to see how the smoke from the massive wildfires affected orchard trees, specifically almonds, pistachios, and walnuts in the California Central Valley. And initially, we were actually just looking at their energy reserves, their non-structural carbohydrates, which is what they get when they photosynthesize and they use to grow and to be productive. So we wanted to see whether there was an impact specifically in fall, because we found out through some of our previous research that in the fall, they build up these stores, which is what supports them through their dormancy when they go to sleep. And they also use these stores for bloom. So we are particularly interested because the peak of wildfire season coincides with this time when they're building up their reserves. So we were like, oh, with the smoke, can they build up enough reserves, or is there an impact on their energy reserves? And yeah, so that's what we were initially looking at, but we weren't expecting to see such a lingering effect. And we weren't expecting to see a correlation with yield the following year. So yeah, that's in effect what we were trying to do.
So also this is a part of a long-term study to understand the impact of climate change on the agriculturally important trees and the orchards in California, and not only in California, but in the world. And when we are studying the long-term impact of those trees, which we started to collect data in 2017, we encountered this effect of smoke as an interruption of bigger problem that we are studying: the impact of increasing temperature, reduction of water inputs, or reduction of precipitation, reduction of fog activity during the winter. And during that time, we realized, or not me, but Jessica realized that it's important to look at the problem arising from smoke that reduces the light and impacts the photosynthetic period of photosynthesis that supply energy to increase supply the energy for surviving those parts of non-productivity during the winter. And this creation of reserves for the dormancy period is super important for plants to survive and be productive the following year.
And you both touched on this a little bit, but I was curious about what surprised you the most about long-term effects of the wildfire smoke on orchard trees? And do these findings change our understanding of plant health during and after wildfire?
Yeah, so like I said, we weren't expecting them to be such long term, but it definitely puts some things into perspective, just because wildfire intensity and these mega fires predictions seem to be that they're going to continue happening. And so we feel this is going to be a growing concern and something that hadn't really been talked about. Mostly we've talked about how smoke affects human health, or in terms of wildfire, we generally think of how fire directly burns, but we never really think about the smoke affecting productivity, or at least there hadn't been a direct link to productivity. And we can see now that just like secondhand smoke affects people who aren't smoking, trees that aren't directly burnt by wildfires can still suffer significant harm from the smoke. So this is definitely, I think, will be a still lasting concern.
And the idea was that previous research show of smoke in Amazon River, near Amazon River, or even in California, it shows small increase of productivity, but smoke was never as intense as the smoke that we experienced during these 2 years of 2020 and 2021 in California. And trees were not exposed ever for weeks in a time to smoke. In the previous study, trees were exposed to short period of smoke that temporarily increased the productivity due to the increased diffused light intensity within the crowns of the trees. When the leaves are absorbing the light, there was more light to the leaves that are in the bottom of the canopy. However, the intensity of fires and smoke during 2020 and 2021 exceeded any kind of expectations, and the sky were red, and light was reduced by more than 20% almost. And it really affected the photosynthetic capacity of the trees. That's what we infer from our research.
We'll continue with the discussion of smoke damage right after this. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We're talking this morning about damage from wildfire smoke on tree nut crops. I hadn't thought about it until we started talking, but I have done several stories on the effects of wildfire smoke in wine grapes with smoke taint and how that affects it, but I've never even thought about how the wildfire smoke can affect our orchard trees, especially in the Central Valley. As we were talking off mic about, that's my home. That's where I was brought up for 40-something years. And I know that the wildfire smoke affects me and my breathing capacity, but I'd never considered it with the trees. The report also mentions that the smoke reduces carbohydrates in trees, I believe, but it remained unclear which components like light, ozone, or particulate matter are responsible. So is there more research that's needed to really pinpoint the main factors, or is it important to know which of those main factors is responsible?
Yeah, so it's a really complicated because smoke is so diverse, and not only that, it can change through time. So what we did see, we looked at their isotopic signatures, and we can see that definitely the trees didn't have access to carbon dioxide. We cannot say what exactly was the reason for that. So there's definitely need to be more research into but it's just very hard to study because these are anomalous events that happen. So part of what we want to promote is like this idea of having this long-term data, because from long-term data, you can really see the effects of anomalous events and then try to really pinpoint like, oh, was it the ozone or was it the particulate matter that affected it the most? But for now, we can't really say. We know that there's a lack of access to CO2, which means that definitely photosynthesis was hampered, but we can't really pinpoint exactly what factor was contributed the most to this effect. But we can say, or it was maybe that it was all the components, but definitely from smoke, there was an impact, and most probably on photosynthesis, which is why we saw a decline in carbohydrate stores or energy reserves.
So smoke produces, apart from just burning the area, the smoke as wildfire produces a lot of different compounds, and they range from micro size particles that can be deposited on leaves that reduce the access to light, but also there are nano-sized compounds that can enter the stomata, through the stomata of leaves, and then interfere directly with their composition of heavy metals or basically the particulate long-lasting compounds that we don't really know. We need to study it. They can interfere with the photosynthetic ability of plants to access CO2. What is also important is that the changes in light composition also can affect the access to CO2, and the stomata behavior, like ozone layer or ozone in the air, can interfere with the tree ability to open and keep stomata open. So there is a lot of unknown effects. There is a lot of known effects that each one was already studied in separation from the smoke, intense smoke. And we know that stomata can be shut down by presence of the, let's say, ozone in the air. But in the overall picture, it is really difficult to say which component or altogether really drop the amount of CO2 being accessed by trees and prepare trees for the winter or for dormancy. And this is the lingering effect of it is related to the fact that there is not but there is multiple compounds that really affect the plants in their response to the environment.
When we're looking at this study and how much the trees are affected, we're talking about some major consequences from what I read and what I understood. But yields could be reduced as much as 50% in some orchards. That's extremely significant. First off, did I read that right? And what do you take from that?
So there is a range of impact, and the scientific reports, they provide the ranges, and they provide we have to use units. And in this case, we said the 50% per unit of smoke level, which means that for the units were from 0, no smoke whatsoever, to 1 unit, which is really dark skies and very serious effect. And that comes from statistics. Each orchard that we study has a relatively smaller effect, but we have to provide it by unit. So that's where we said, it's 50%. And it also was on a few orchards that we analyzed that had very high effect. But on average, the effect was a little bit lower, around 30% for the orchards that we studied.
We'll continue the discussion of smoke damage right after this. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. We'll be back in just a moment. This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. What about humates in animal feed? When can you add humates to the animal feed, and what is the benefit of that?
So the interesting thing about animal feeds is, just like the fertilizer side, there's actually a lot going on in legislative processes. So there's an act out called the Innovative Feed Act. And currently, you can't include things in animal feed that are giving you other benefits besides nutritive benefits. Let's say, for example, you had a cow that was eating a product that reduced its methane emissions, those enteric gases that are caused just in the natural digestion of a ruminating cow. You can't claim that those products do that benefit. So hopefully people will get involved and say, look, the Innovative Feed Act is necessary and should help farmers. Other benefits of feeding humate is obviously first to reduce enteric gases. But the second one, these are old plant materials. So those plant materials are rich in trace minerals. So not only are you getting something that's going to help the digestion of the animal, you're also getting an abundant supply of minerals. So that is the main reason farmers are currently including in their animal feeds.
This is all fascinating, but it can be hard to retain some of this information when you're hearing this on the radio or through the podcast. So is there someplace online, or where can our listeners go and get more information?
Well, the good news is the acts I mentioned, like the Innovative Feed Act and the Plant Biostimulant Act, are publicly available through Congress. You can actually go look at those acts. They're on the website there. The other information you can get is directly through Live Earth Products. So if you go to liveearth.com, contact us. You can contact us and our agronomy team. And we're happy to go over any details, questions about how to use these products, how they fit in your farm program, how to use them as a tool to implement conservation practices such as nutrient retention, water conservation, and improving soil health.
To get to know more about Live Earth Products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We continue now our conversation on the damage to Central Valley's tree nut crops from wildfire smoke.
And also, it's important to note this was on almond orchards because we weren't able to get yield data for pistachio and walnut. So this is specific to
yield. And it also depends, it's a little bit depends on the age of the orchards, the management practice that was used by the grower. So it is a range of the impact that we see. However, the range of the impacts that we see for average age of the trees and for the range of smoke that they truly experience was about 30% for orchards that we got data from, which was about 40 or 50 orchards, 56 orchards. But it is an important element because after the exposure to the smoke the year before, the following year yield seems to be decreased by a significant amount of pounds per acre.
So looking at management practices, did you find any management practices that growers could adopt to help mitigate the impact of the smoke?
So this is an interesting question because we don't know, as no one ever before studied the impact of smoke on yield. And then project and saying what practices could be applied, that we just don't know. It has to be studied a little bit more.
Yeah, we need to have better insight into what factors or components in smoke that most contributed to the effect to see how we can address them with management practices. But as of now, it seems like once you have a mega fire, it's really hard to do anything about it at that point in time. I think a lot of it will have to probably also go into policy making and trying to make sure that these fires, these like mega fires, don't become commonplace.
And I have so many thoughts on that because it almost leads to thoughts of, gosh, what can we do? There's almost nothing that growers can do in that end. But I don't want to leave this on a negative note. So are you continuing your research?
We are trying to continue research, and the research depends on the support of the grower community, as our research depends on collecting data from large-scale areas like entire Central Valley. We try to use citizen research approach when we ask growers to send us monthly or bi-monthly samples that we can analyze.
Free of charge, by the way.
Free of charge. And look at this from the perspective, is there to build a data set that can be used for analysis of such unusual events that can tell us about prospect of growing trees in California into the future.
So then I want to offer you the opportunity to speak directly to growers, which is our primary listeners, and especially there in the Central Valley with the tree nut crops. What do you want them to understand about your research and the importance, and also the importance of their participation?
I think the most important part is to understand that research is not year to year, that there is no instantaneous gratification in terms of I support research and next year I want my crop to increase the yield by 20%. The research at the basic level is a long-term
investment, basically.
Yeah, it's a long-term investment that requires patience. And this kind of study this particular study was supported by 3 major industries: the Board of California Almond, Pistachio, and Walnut. And with their help, we are able to communicate with growers and collect the data, collect the samples, and discover this kind of unusual event. But without long-term research and patience, we will not be able to understand how climate change in a bigger scale of things that happens affect their growth, and how to even develop the future abilities to develop new management practices to account for those changes. It would be really difficult.
Essentially, and it boils down to active grower participation in a lot of these efforts, because at the end of the day, we're trying to help them. So help us, help you.
And also, we found a little obstacles in terms of sharing the data.
Particularly yield data.
Yield data. Not a lot of growers would want to share the yield data. And in this case, as they aim to have high yields, knowing what affects those yields is super important. And without knowing what they get from the fields, we cannot use our research to understand how this impact their profits.
Again, I just want to thank you both for taking time out to talk about this. I think this is an extremely important topic for our growers around California. The wildfires they're going to continue, and tree nut crops are just vital to our state's agriculture industries. So thank you for doing the research, and thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for interviewing us.
This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. We will be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We're heading out to the Syngenta Media Summit. Here's Chuck Zimmerman.
I'm visiting with Syngenta in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I have with me Mead McDonald. And first of all, Mead, what do you do?
Yes, I am the Digital Ag Solutions Marketing Manager. I live here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and my team is accountable for developing the go-to-market strategy for our CropWise digital ecosystem, which is a portfolio of digital tools that's really built to solve problems for growers. We're also excited about the value proposition that CropWise offers our aligned retail partners in a way that makes them more efficient, enables them to create differentiation, and build stronger relationships with their growers. So our strategy, our digital strategy, is largely focused on two people groups, and that's growers and our aligned retail partners.
How long has CropWise been around? When did it start?
Now, that's a really good question. So Syngenta, we've been very much involved in a digital offer called AgriEdge that had a legacy farm management system software tool that is now recently, so in the past 24 months, CropWise has really come to life with a new FMS tool called CropWise Financials. It's very much associated with the AgriEdge offer, but we have risk management offers like CropWise Commodity Pro, which is a very unique offer where it's deployed to retailers who enroll growers who are committed to using some of our highest performing products like our Better Yield is the Better Deal brands. And we share risk in corn, soybeans, wheat, and cotton, any crops that are CBOT traded. And if the price during a defined protection period of any of those commodities decreases, we share risk up to a portion of the value of their purchases of Syngenta products. And if the price goes up, we don't owe them anything, but they did use some of the highest performing products in the market, and they stand the best chance to increase yield and quality. So it's a really unique offer. And then we have a digital proprietary scouting tool that tracks and measures. Anytime you go into a field or field boundary, you can take pictures and do voice recordings and identify weeds and insects, and then very efficiently transmit or communicate those insights out to other people. It could be back to the grower. It could be to a crop consultant. It could be to an applicator that needs to come make an application of a product. So digital scouting tool that's very robust. We also have the CropWise Sustainability app, which helps give a grower, they go through it, take a survey, answer some questions, and it helps them identify areas in sustainability and regenerative ag that they could improve on, and it gives them feedback on how they're doing on their sustainability journey, actually gives them a score. And it helps them measure their farm against other farms. And so it's a really great tool to help growers measure on-farm practices. And then lastly, we have CropWise imagery. So we have a partnership with Planet, a software integration with Planet Labs to get high resolution, high frequency, cloud cutting imagery. We also have access to Landsat Sentinel imagery. And there's all kinds of things you can do with CropWise imagery other than just see fields. You can use the NVDI to measure plant health. You can set up variable rate prescriptions with CropWise imagery and do a whole bunch of other things that should help make growers and retailers more efficient when they're looking at their fields. Knowing where to go scout is actually one of them.
So if they're a grower to use the CropWise platform, is it that they have all these elements available, or do they just pick and choose what they need or want?
Great question. And so we do have CropWise digital tools that are very focused and deployed to the retailer, who would then enroll growers. But then within the AgriEdge offer, which is a whole farm, whole portfolio offer from Syngenta that's really deployed directly to growers, often through and with the channel to the grower. Those tools, AgriEdge encompasses 4 digital tools from Syngenta, which include CropWise Financials, access to CropWise imagery, access to the CropWise Sustainability app, and then for large AgriEdge growers, they have access to CropWise Protector. So there are digital tools specifically focused on growers, and then we have other digital tools and offers that include CropWise technology that are focused on retailers.
So if a farmer is making use of this, that's going to be a benefit for not only working with Syngenta representatives out in the field, or if they have other kind of advisors that they look to that can look at that information and give them good advice for what they should be doing at a given time.
Absolutely. We have one of the most trusted commercial sales teams in the industry, and we've got a rich product pipeline. We've got a broad portfolio. So, digital tools are not going to replace people. Our industry is all about people in relationship with growers and retailers. So these tools are about enabling efficiency and really trying to get at how we can help improve the labor shortage that growers and retailers face, bringing some simplicity to their day and helping them be more efficient, and enabling retailers to create differentiation that leads to stronger relationships with their growers. So, for growers, it's about being on a digital journey that enables them to build trust. Digital tools take time. I believe that the digital journey is not a race; it's a journey, and trust and credibility with the tool takes time. And our strategy with CropWise is to be in a long-term relationship with growers and retailers in CropWise. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And, of course, as you know, software has a shelf life of about 6 weeks before it changes. So, we have to make sure we keep these tools really performing at a high level so that trust and credibility can continue forward.
Do you have a support team if they're having an issue, like, I can't get this update to go,
We do, and it's a core part of our strategy and enabler of our success. And that team is a dedicated Syngenta office in Murray, Kentucky that has 35 employees that are our customer support, customer service, and training arm for CropWise. And those people wake up every day to field questions from AgriEdge growers or field questions from retailers that need to be onboarded or trained up on CropWise imagery or another CropWise tool. We can't be successful without a service and support and training arm. And we have that infrastructure and those people in place to do just that.
Well, thank you very much for visiting with me here in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm Chuck Zimmerman.
This is the AgNet News Hour, and we will be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. We continue from the Syngenta Media Summit. Here's Chuck Zimmerman.
I'm visiting with Syngenta in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I have with me Austin Parrish. And first of all, Austin, what do you do for the company?
Yeah, Chuck, thanks for having me here. So I'm the head of commercial operations for North America. So within my team, we've got we run the business support function, so primarily for marketing and sales. So you think about offer management with customers, bulk operations with customers, pricing. And then a lot of what we do as well is really work with our production and supply chain to forecast demand for our customers and ensure that we're getting product delivered to the right place at the right time ahead of the season.
Tell me about the process, for doing just what you said.
So it's really interesting because essentially every supply chain has its own story. Now, you can have certain supply chains like our atrazine supply chain in that's based out of St. Gabriel, Louisiana, where we're actually piped into raw materials like natural gas and chlorine. And so we can go from zero through to finished product and have that delivered to the Midwest in around a week's time. That's by far the exception. More of the norm is about like an 8-month end-to-end supply chain. And what we're finding now is these new R&D, the new chemistry that we're bringing to market is becoming more and more complex. You're talking about 18 stages to make a molecule and synthesize a molecule versus 3 or 4, which is what we're used to with the atrazines, the metolachlors, the dicambas, and things like that. So the new technology is getting more and more complex. As a result of that, it gets a lot of different stamps on its passport as it works its way around the world. But essentially, you basically start with raw materials, so some of the base chemicals, and we take that and depending on how many stages are in the AI synthesis, but that comes together where we actually synthesize the active ingredient. The majority of our AIs that we source for our products sold in the U.S. Either come from the U.S. or Europe. We have got a handful that come from Asia, but the majority of that are out of our European supply base in Switzerland and the U.K. So once that active ingredient's made, and from a strategy standpoint, we typically look at active ingredient on a global scale. Now, but then it has to be shipped either by sea freight or air freight to a region such as North America. And typically our formulation fill and pack, where we actually make the formulated product, combine it with the inerts, there's surfactants, all the things that allow that active ingredient when it's combined with water to do what it needs to do on the plant, the weed, is done regionally. So 98% of the products that we produce and that we sell in the U.S. are actually made here. So you ship it to the U.S., to the formulation fill and pack, and then it's really about distribution to either, if it's a bulk product, it goes to one of our bulk terminals, which we have across the U.S., or if it's packaged, it goes to a third-party package warehouse that we hub from to deliver to customers. And so, like I said, it varies very much by supply chain how long that lead time is, but that's at a high level what our supply chain looks like in crop protection.
So what you're describing is something that's made you essentially a leadership in terms of supply, and doing that in a not only friendly but timely way.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think something that differentiates Syngenta in this space is the investment that we've made in our production and supply capabilities, but also in our forecasting and planning capabilities. Because, as we know, if you think about corn and soybeans, they're roughly planted in 6-7 weeks. So you've got this big peak, but you've got to plan all year long, or like I said, sometimes 2 years in advance to build up to that peak. So it's a make-to-stock program, not a make-to-order program like if I was building Boeing airplanes, for instance. And so the forecasting piece is critical to that. And so what we've done on the supply side, though, is recognizing that there's a lot of risk that comes with single sourcing, whether it be for a raw material, an active ingredient, or even for the formulated product. And so we've made a significant effort to increase the number of sources that we have for raw materials, for active ingredient, and for even some of the inerts, the surfactants that go into the formulation itself. We tend to focus a lot on the active ingredient because that's the key part of the formulation. But just like you can't sell a F-150 without the door handle, you can't sell the branded product to a customer without those surfactants that go in it, right? So they're just as critical. And so I think our multi-sourcing strategy has really been important. And then, like I said, I also think the way that we run our forecasting and planning process, with having sales reps actually work with retail accounts at the local level, understanding what growers need, to feed into that on the back of all the kind of statistics and historical analysis, the market analysis and things that my team is doing at more of a corporate level. Bringing those things together is what really sets us up for success.
This is the AgNet News Hour, and we'll continue with Chuck Zimmerman and Austin Parrish right after this.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We're back with Chuck Zimmerman and Austin Parrish from the Syngenta Media Summit.
You did mention in your presentation trucking, and how important that is to this whole supply chain.
Look, we definitely try to ship product as sustainably as possible. So we try to maximize utilization of rail shipments from Louisiana to the Midwest, for instance, particularly before season. But inevitably, the majority of our sales to customers are on the back of trucking capacity. And essentially since 2010 or so, we've seen a growing divergence between the supply of trucking capacity and the demand. And it just continues to diverge, where you continue to run into trucking shortages. We think back a few years when the industry installed the electronic logging devices that caused truckers to have to log all their miles. And so gone were the days where you could fudge your hours. It's much more strict in terms of hours on the road, so that reduced capacity even further. You look at when COVID came and some of the supply chain constraints there, we were essentially competing with Amazon and all these other people that are now work from home. A lot more trucks on the road delivering those things, so that created competition for us to be able to deliver packaged products to our customers. So trucking is a critical piece of our operation. We work through a 4PL, but we've got a number of really strong relationships with carriers, both in the South and East Coast and the Midwest, and even some out in the western part of the country, to enable that customer service level.
Well, before we close, one thing I thought it'd be interesting to hear you talk about is the growing use of AI for machine learning, and how does that fit into the kind of work you do?
Yeah, so I think we've got a number of different projects in place to look at answering exactly that question, and really understanding where the value and the return on investment for this new technology is. We know it's out there, but it's really trying to figure out where it is. Now, the places that we're utilizing it most now is trying to predict. So, and when we're talking about AI right now, it is very much the descriptive AI, machine learning, not the generative AI yet. And so it's really trying to take into account all the factors that go into the demand for our products. So you think about acres, intensity, weather patterns, commodity prices, NVDI, moisture level, all those types of things. And the great thing about these AI machines is you can load as much data as you want, and then we're trying to adjust different variables to see where correlations are and try to pick up trend lines, so that we can essentially take that, overlay that on top of already existing kind of statistical forecasts just based off of historical sales, and, like I was saying, all of the information that our sales reps are getting from the local customer level, and bring that together to try to get an improved demand signal about what we need to make, where we need to ship it, and when. So that's really the area that we've progressed the most. I think there's a lot of promise there, albeit there's a lot of variables that go into demand for crop protection products. So we're trying to just kind of make sure we understand which ones have the largest impact on demand. Another place where we're using it is through our marketing initiatives, is what marketing activities that we're doing, whether it be driven out of our corporate headquarters here or local marketing initiatives, what is the impact that they have on sales, and trying to draw that correlation to see, based on that, we can then understand, okay, we're planning to do this marketing campaign based on the demand generation from that last year. We saw an uptick in Acuron sales, for instance, and we can use that to help drive and improve our forecast accuracy for products. So those are two core areas that I'm involved in, and then our logistics team is also using some AI in the optical space, and it's really about driving efficiency. So they get like 70,000 pages worth of PDF documents that they're working through with these third-party warehouses, and they've got this optical technology that can read these different sources and then categorize that or catalog it in a database that's then searchable. It helps for paying invoices. It helps run analytics in terms of driving efficiency and things like that. And then the last piece is really on for scenario planning purposes for our raw material sourcing strategies at the different manufacturing sites, and basically using that to do what if scenario planning if weather or something like that has an impact, and really around a risk mitigation strategy. So those are a few places that we're using it as it relates to production and supply. Like I said, across research and development and IT, there's lots of AI use cases, but specifically in my area, that's really what we're looking at.
Thank you very much, Austin, for visiting with me here, and we are in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm Chuck Zimmerman reporting.
This has been today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halverson on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.